Thank you for tuning into the Hacking the Patriarchy podcast. I'm your fervent feminist host, Raven O'Neill, and I get the honors of sitting down with women experts from all walks of life to discuss the ideas, opportunities, and the strategies that women can take advantage of to get ahead in our patriarchal society. So, if one of your love languages is learning how to hack patriarchal systems and structures, I invite you to join us and help move the needle. In today's episode, I get the honor of sitting down with an extraordinary polymath who embodies the phrase, doing everything, everywhere, all at once. Aubria Ralph is a Caribbean-American professional whose journey spans corporate retail, higher education, law, entrepreneurship, and authorship. From her roots in St. Vincent and the Grenadines to becoming a top-tier attorney, community leader, and now the founder of Scrappy Girl Project, Aubria has dedicated her life to empowering women and pursuing multifaceted excellence. As an author of The Adventures of Boo and Chin and a passionate advocate for individual rights, she's not just breaking barriers, she's redefining them. Get ready for an inspiring conversation with a woman who proves that curiosity, discipline, and purpose can transform multiple career paths into an extraordinary life story. Please come together and offer Aubria a very warm welcome. Welcome, Aubria. I'm super excited to have you. Today, we're going to dive into how to tell your narrative.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me here, Raven. It's always a pleasure to just spend time with you. So I'm happy that we're doing this finally.
Ditto, ditto, ditto. And I love that we're going to talk about writing your own narrative because you are an author. Well, actually, let's rewind. You're not an author. You're all the things. And we're going to dive into that because I think a great starting place is your story, your narrative.
Yeah. Where do I even begin? I'll start at the beginning. I am a West Indian woman. I'm from the Caribbean, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And I spent the first 12 years of my life growing up on a tropical island and just enjoying life from a different perspective. And I grew up with my grandmother in a house of 13 people, and she just imprinted on all of us. So we all have a little piece of her. I like to think I have a lot of pieces of her. Because I spent a lot of time with her, traveling. She was a pastor. And so she was always going somewhere, going to some concert or harvest and talking about the Lord. I would say the biggest piece of my narrative is the faith that, she imprinted on me at a very young age. I moved to New York when I was 12 years old. And that was like culture shock. I went from kind of being able to move freely around and do kind of whatever I wanted to, being a little bit more restricted just because New York is a very different place. And, I moved in with my mom and, she has been, I will say that the thread that kind of made a lot of things happen in my youth. And, even till now, I credit a lot of who I am to my mom because without her sacrifices, I don't exist. Without her deciding, hey, I need more for my kids. I need more for my own life. So I'm going to move to this country because it promises this American dream. And so I moved to New York, and I'll fast forward to adulthood just because there's so many things. I grew up as an athlete. I played soccer and field hockey during my adolescent years, and actually well into my 20s, I was still playing soccer, field hockey, club sports in New York City. And it's funny, I'm reading a lot of articles now about how women who played sports actually make good leaders for companies. They have the drive and the ambition and actually have the skills because you learn those skills from working together as a team. And so being an athlete, I think, is a huge part of my narrative because I found myself taking on the captain role, even on smaller teams at work, running deal teams as an attorney, teaching my students how to do group projects and do it in a meaningful way as a professor, and writing my own story as I go and showing people you can do whatever you want. You can change your mind. You can have a master plan that's 5 years out, and then you can scrap the plan 3 years in and say, no, I don't want that anymore. I think there are really no rules that anybody should live by when they're creating their narrative, other than want to live my best possible life and reach as many people as I can and fulfill my purpose. I think that should be the ultimate rule. But Otherwise, no one should ever feel limited in how they work out their own narrative.
Since this season is about entrepreneurship and the topic always at hand is hacking the patriarchy, there are so many ways we could take this conversation, but I want to look at that narrative. And I love that you said you can scrap it. In entrepreneurship, what might you say are things that you can look at in your life to know if you need to change the narrative?
So, I recently started Scrappy Girl Project, which and I mean, I went to bed on a Wednesday and I woke up on a Thursday and I registered my company. Like it wasn't a well thought out plan, if you will. Other than I had planned on doing it, in March 2025. I wasn't sure what I was doing and thought I needed the additional year to figure out what I wanted to do. And I've just been kind of figuring it out day by day, which I think has given me the ability to shape this into a really beautiful consulting firm. I really care about leadership. I want to help women, but wait a minute. Mostly men are running everything still in 2024. So I do want to help women, but I need to also help the men that are currently in these roles get a clear understanding of how they need to lead, how they need to create space for women, how they need to amplify women's voices, how they need to push women ahead and sponsor women. I think women in general are over mentored and really under sponsored. And so you find yourself doing a lot of administrative tasks in a corporate role when you really should be taking on leadership roles. You might be doing the notes for a meeting when you really should be running a meeting because that's your deck that they're presenting. And so to answer your question, I think as an entrepreneur, you want to have an idea of where you're going. What is your ultimate goal? What's your purpose for being? What's the purpose for your company? But be flexible, be flexible. I think you are the person who told me this. Find a community, find people that are like-minded, that can encourage you, that can provide resources to you. Get a coach, get multiple coaches. Fire your coach if your coach sucks. Don't feel like you need to keep paying somebody who's not getting you to where you want to go, or even just like giving you feedback that's relevant to who you are, because a lot of times, there are people out here giving advice, but they're giving advice through their lens. They're not giving advice through what you actually need based on your track record. And so, I think you have to trust your track record and know you've done hard things, you've done amazing things. I don't think people stumble into entrepreneurship because I think the people who become entrepreneurs are the people that are entrepreneurs in corporations. They're the people that are helping business development. They're running teams in a way, that's very streamlined. They're training and developing their staff. Like they do things very differently. They're looking at things in a very holistic way. They tend to have a vision of where they want to go. If you've decided you want to be an entrepreneur, I'm done working for the man. I'm gonna be the man, or rather, I'm gonna be the woman. I'm gonna be the woman that runs this. Trusting that you have what it takes to do it, and being willing to say, this isn't working, I'm gonna try something else. But then also when you find something that works, lean into it and keep doing it, because why are we fixing things that are not broken?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh gosh. I want to circle back to working with men because it's something you touched on. I feel like sometimes there's a loss in how to do that. And I know that you do it really well.
Yeah. So most of my cousins growing up were boys. And so I feel like I have special intel in how to manage men. I think I manage people.
You're like a superhero.
I think generally I manage people really well. I actually think we need to be collaborating with the men because they're also victims of the patriarchy. And they haven't figured out how to relate to people who haven't had the power, right? They've kind of been in their role for so long. Everyone's conditioned, like, I'll pick white men. White men are conditioned to believe I am the ish. I'm important. I'm special. It doesn't matter if they're qualified or whatever. That's how they feel about themselves, right? And then as you run the gambit of every type of person and every intersection from there on, you have a range of people either thinking they don't belong, even if they have what it takes to get there. And so, how is it we've managed to blow up the heads of one particular archetype in our entire world and completely deflate everybody else? And so, I think they miss out from being pushed forward sometimes, even when they don't have the skill set, because they end up breaking things. To me, if I'm picking you because you're a white man with good hair and you're kind of tall, like those are not real. Those are like the real requirements for a CEO role. When you rest assured, when you look at a list of CEOs, that's what you're going to see. Older white man, good hair, who cares if his hair plugs, looks like good hair, and kind of like tall enough, like 5'10" or taller. And we know the 5'10" guys are saying they're 6 foot, and that's for another podcast for sure. But ultimately, for me, I like having conversations. And so I think the best way to work with the men is really give them a forum to speak. And how do you do that? By asking questions. I think, it's one thing to go into a room and say, I'm going to show you how to do this. It's a whole other ball game to come into the room and say, I'm going to ask you a series of questions so that we can come up with the best strategy for, your goal of having, 50% partners, women. Right? Because now you're reinforcing, hey man, you actually have the power to do this. Because that's the other thing too. A lot of these men, although they're in these roles, they act like they're not the boss. In fact, I think it was in the movie Hidden Figures where Taraji P. Henson's character says to Kevin Costner, who's in charge of this, she's having a problem with her immediate boss, who's a middle manager. And he's like, okay, so who makes a decision on this particular thing? And it's about her getting into the room as the person writing the programming for this rocket launch. And she's like, you do, but you don't act like it. She says that to him. And I remember when she said that, that really rang true to me because I thought, man, that's so true. A lot of men who are actually in these leadership roles, they haven't been given the tools to truly lead and actually get things done and move the needle forward for everyone, not just a specific archetype.
I love that because that's really about the narrative, right? And we're all contributing to that narrative. Somehow it's perpetuated into what it is. Since this is about writing the narrative, let's circle back to the differences between men and women. And I feel like there's a very clear difference between men and women when they tell their narrative. And so looking at what you've seen and what you might recommend women take from that to help tell their narrative.
So I'll talk about my time in big law, actually. Working in, a multinational law firm, on a banking and finance team, I was the odd man out. I've been the only Black woman on 2 sets of teams, at 2 different law firms. And one thing I will say, is actually really incredible. At the first firm that I worked at, like everyone in that banking group, they were brilliant, which was part of the reason I wanted to work with them. You know what? It's going to be hard. I'm going to be working all the time, but these people are smart, so they're going to make me smart. And that was me writing my own narrative. I want to be smart. I'm going to hang out with the people that I think are the smartest and get the tools that I need. Got there, and what I found really interesting, I ended up gravitating to one particular partner who he wasn't necessarily the most clever, technical attorney, but he was your ultimate finance bro. He could walk into the room, make a deal. You wouldn't even know what happened. He was just so smooth with it. And that was something I loved about him. He just had a certain amount of drive. And so he became a partner relatively quickly. And I remember sitting in on one of his meetings and we had a pre-call and he was like, yeah, Aubria, we've never done anything like this before. but this is what I think we're going to do. And I'm looking at him, are you for real though? Like, are you serious? And then we meet with the client and I'm listening to him and I forgot he already told me we never did that before. And what I loved was he was pulling from all the different types of work he had done before to put together what the deal could look like for the client and essentially telling the story of how he was going to fix their problem. Literally within 5 minutes of saying, yeah, we never did this before. We're just going to have to figure it out. Just incredible, right? And so just working with him, he made me energized. He made me really confident really early in my career as an attorney, where I realized I don't have to have all of the direct answers. I can actually pull from stuff I've done before. And I actually took it even further where I pulled from past types of work. So I pulled from when I used to teach. I pulled from when I used to do my mom's finances as a 13-year-old and everything in between to make the connections with the clients and develop that trust so that they knew if Aubria is working on my stuff, I know she's paying attention. I know she's taking care of what I need to do. On the flip side, there were women on the team that were technically out of the ballpark. I've never met people more brilliant where I'm like, how did you figure that out from just looking at the document? Come on. You scanned the document on the call and you're telling the client, oh, if we don't fix this, and rolling out the 25 things that could go wrong if they don't fix that one sentence, excuse me. And so that was another level of brilliancy there. The difference between these women were whenever they were in the room with the men, they were very deferential. And I don't think the men made it so they had to be deferential. I think that because we've just been so conditioned to be deferential, women were property until what? You know, I mean, let's really talk about it, right? Women weren't working until when? Before the 60s and 70s, you were an outcast. That was not normal behavior. People would talk about you. It's very recent that we have, 50 years of women actually being in the job market. And so I totally get it. These women are literally like, I gotta make sure that I'm good because I have a mortgage and I have I have kids and we have tuition and, and all the like 35,000 things men can't help but think about. And then taking on the administrative work, becoming the work wife to every male manager that you're working with. It becomes a lot where, you're forgetting kind of your purpose. And so I found myself having compassion for the women to a degree. Because if you're 5 years in, like me, I feel like you have to like put some respect on people's names who've been there, just kind of your manners kind of thing. But once you get to like 20 years in, there's no room for imposter syndrome. I'm sorry. There's just no room for that. Cut it out. My mom's going to be mad about this, but whatever. You can run this. Cut the bullshit. Just cut it out. Stop reinforcing that lie that you're an imposter when you went to school, you got your degree, you did all that continued learning, you're running better deals than your male counterparts. You're taking on the big clients. You're signing the big clients. You're actually bringing business into your companies, right? When you look at your team, actually rolled out other leaders in your team because you've nurtured other people's careers. You've helped people figure out the best kind of harmony for their own lives. You have to put some respect on your own name after a certain amount of time in anything that you're doing. And frankly, I don't think it needs to be 20 years in one particular thing. If you've been in the job market for 20 years, you're a pro. Put some respect on your name. Because if you don't show up with the confidence, you're just going to get run over.
I love it. Cut out the bullshit. My question is, how can you support your, let's even say business and personal brand through great narrative telling?
Yeah. So for me, I'm a writer. Like I, do really well when I write things. And I also do really well in person or even like a Zoom interaction. If you tell me I need to like record myself to tell a story, that's really hard for me. And I think part of it is that like I spent a lot of time like trying to hide in the background. And so now that I'm like here, you're going to be like more public facing now. Like, are you okay with that? And part of it is like, I have like, I just really care about my privacy. I don't really want people having like full details about my life. Like, there are parts of my life that I will share because I feel it's really important to share. They're just things I want to keep for myself. And so, how do you tell a story about your personal brand as well as your business's brand and still keep some of our stuff for ourselves? And it's not necessarily bad stuff. It's just, I want to keep that in my little cocoon. That's just for me and my family. And we're enjoying this very personal and private thing that's just for us. So I think the first thing is deciding what kind of brand you want. And if you want to be one of those people who's sharing everything, or you just want to share those things that are going to help people in their careers, help people in their personal lives, just show people, you know what, I'm going through it too. Everybody's going through it. I feel like the pandemic helped us recognize that like everybody's going through stuff while it was happening, but like we've come like a little bit further away from that. And so we're getting back into that mindset. Like I had like really high hopes when we came back after we started interacting again. People would be more compassionate towards others. We would just have a different heart. And instead, I feel like we just became even more hardened as individuals. And frankly, as a collective, because I feel when we do things in this campy way, like, we just don't know how to act as human beings. But, it blows my mind. For example, like activism doesn't have to be explosive, right? You can actually actively be changing the world without disrupting everyone and everything. And there are times when you have to do that because of some kind of injustice, but I don't think we need to like be there every day, all day. And so my personal brand is I do or say whatever I want. And that's why my company is called Scrappy Girl Project, because you never know. I'm a professional. I will be professional when I speak to you, but I will be very direct. I will not mince my words. I will get straight to the root of the problem. We won't spend time on your symptoms. I'm going to be like, okay, what's the source of the problem? And that's how I communicate. But in our world right now, people don't like that. They like the passive aggressive stuff. Me, I'm like, if I disrespect you, I want you to come to me and tell me, hey, Aubria, you disrespected me. Just come and say, hey, when you said that, you disrespected me. Because if you do the passive aggressive stuff, I don't communicate in that way. I will literally ignore you. I'll pretend like I don't know what's going on, even if I know, because to me, we have to be able to communicate effectively. And so that's my personal brand. Say what you mean what you say. And, you can do that and actually uplift people. You don't have to do it in a mean way, because I tell people things straight all the time. And I still have a lot of people reaching out to me. People don't run away from me because they know if they come and they ask Aubrey a question, she's going to say, hey, this is what I think, and not beat around the bush. And I think that's much more helpful. I think for me, that means I have integrity. And so my personal brand is this person has integrity, right? And so because I personally have integrity, if I'm running a business, people are going to automatically have an expectation that if Aubria is a part of it, there's going to be integrity, right? And so I think a lot of times people try to separate it, but your clients, your customers, the people that are doing contracts with you, the businesses, they care about your personal brand. They care if you're being disrespectful to particular groups because they're considered other in our society. They care about that. They care if you're mistreating them. I've worked with people before where they forget they were paid for a service. And I'm like, I paid you $5,000 to abuse me? Like, no, not your child, you know? But it all stems from like people's inability to communicate effectively. And so I think, for your personal brand, when you're telling your story, you want to make sure you're just like being yourself, right? I don't want to say it, but I'll say it. Be authentic. And don't be the authentic you think other people need you to be. That's the whole thing. And it drives me crazy. I can go on to LinkedIn, for example, and I will find every single post that was a prompt to ChatGPT saying, create an authentic post that talks about when I went on a hike. Why can't you just write that? you know? And there's all these arrows and emojis. It's such a turnoff. You're almost pandering to the public, but at the same time insulting their intelligence. Like, oh, we'll never figure out what you're doing, but it's so obvious. Or you have these really well thought out posts, but then people find out that you're perpetrating as an ally to women. But there's been 3 lawsuits against your company for sexual harassment or being racist or whatever. I think really making sure you just be who you are. That was advice I gave to my younger sister when she was leading a double life. She was a goody two shoes at home, didn't cuss or anything, but we knew the truth. We knew. And one day I kind of told her, hey girl, just be who you are. You're figuring out yourself. It's totally fine. But stop trying to be 2 types of people at the same time. It's not worth it. Just figure out who you're going to be by being who you are right now and grow. And it's okay to grow your personal brand and evolve. Like I said initially, like it's okay to change your mind. And I'll give you an example. So I started this newsletter, Black Excellence is a Threat, last fall, which you know about. It was very angry, that newsletter. Like the first 4 or 5 articles in that newsletter, unhinged, completely unhinged. And my friends reached out to me and they were like, hey, Aubria, are you sure this is what you want for your personal brand? And I was like, I don't care. I don't care about this brand. I'm going to burn it up, because I was so angry, And so they just kind of let me alone. And I actually rebranded that newsletter the Black Excellence Memo about 2 months ago, because I went through all the articles I had at that point, and some of it had definitely veered away from angry Aubria to Aubria's trying to have discourse. I saw the evolution, and I was like, you have to change the name. You can't keep this name, because people are going to come and read it now, and they're not going to necessarily be getting what they think they're going to get. I changed it to the Black Excellence Memo, and I even changed my caption for it, because I said, you know what, we're rebranding it because I don't just want to show Black anger as a result of excellence being thrown under the rug or whatever. I actually want to show every aspect of the Black experience, positive, negative, and everything in between. And so I think you have to be willing to do that with your personal brand and your business's brand. You just have to make an assessment and say, hey, you know what? This is not working. Or this is working, but not in the way that I wanted it to. So let me fix that.
Excellent advice. Going back, you could just throw it out and start over. As we wrap this up, because we're coming to time, I want to get 3 quick hacks from you that women can use to tell their own narrative.
Okay. So the first hack is start a rumor about yourself.
Oh, that's juicy. I was not expecting that from you. Please continue.
Yeah. And most people think of rumors as bad rumors, but rumor has it that I'm awesome. I started that rumor probably back in high school. And to this day, if you mention my name, even the people who do not like me will say, she's not really my cup of tea, but she's really great. So start a rumor about yourself, but you have to show up correct, right? And so after you start the rumor, adopt the rumor, right? You don't get to be great because people are saying you are. You have to show up and produce. You actually have to produce, right? And I'm not saying you have to be great at everything, but you have to have this certain vibe about you where people know when you're around, and I'm using the great one, your standards are high. You're excellent. They're safe with you. And you're not just excellent at work, you're excellent at home. You're excellent with your husband, you're excellent with your children. And that's a lot of pressure. But you get to determine the level of excellence in each area. And the third thing is be present in each moment. Because if you're present in each moment, you could actually get the rumor traction and it could keep going. And so those are my three. Start a rumor, do the work, be present.
Start a rumor, do the work, be present. Just for a little fun. Tell me what rumor I should start about myself.
Ooh. You know what? Raven is a connector.
Oh, I like that.
Oh, better rumor. Raven is a bridge to your success.
Oh my goodness. There it is. I'm running with that. Yes. I was going to say I'm going to write it down, but I don't have to because I'm going to hear this again.
Yeah.
Raven is a bridge to your success. Thank you for that. All right. For the listeners tuning in who have enjoyed this and want to connect and want to get their own rumor, how do they find you?
I am on LinkedIn. You saw me joke about this recently. I've decided to spend 10% more time on Instagram, and I've made my account public. Find me there. And it's just my name. I'm not creative, and my name is very uncommon. I'm the only Aubria Ralph in the world, so you could type me and you will find me. Yeah, those are like the fastest way to get to me. And once you find me on LinkedIn or Instagram, you'll find Scrappy Girl Project. You'll find stuff about Quantum Lead. And you'll find like cool advice, tragic stories, because like I said.
And children's books.
And children's books too. Oh yeah, I forgot. I also have children's books. Although I'm child free, I have 13 godchildren and they are my inspiration for these books. And so we have 7 books out now. And one of my godsons has been pressing me to get back to writing children's books. So keep your fingers crossed, fingers and toes crossed.
More to come on that.
There will be more.
Well, I will put all of your contact in the show notes. Thank you. Thank you so much for showing up today.
Thank you. I really appreciate you.
Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to today's episode. For all the juicy deets on this episode, be sure to check out our show notes or give us a holler on Instagram at Hacking the Patriarchy Podcast. And if you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support this podcast, don't be shy. Please share it with your friends. Sharing is caring after all. Lastly, if you'd like to lend your personal support, please take a moment to tell the world about it with a review on your favorite streaming platform. We'd be forever grateful. Tune in again soon to enjoy a brand new episode of the Hacking the Patriarchy podcast. And until next time, keep on hacking, my friends. If you've made it this far, I have one more little thing to share with you. Did you know that this isn't my only feminist endeavor? That's right, there's more. I run a media startup dedicated to providing the most current and pertinent news about women, for women, and by women. Our mission centers on delivering a platform where the latest updates regarding women-led initiatives are extensively covered, highlighting women's actions, accomplishments, perspectives, and other elements that profoundly influence women's lives and contribute to meaningful progress. I invite you to head over to femled.news to learn more.